All right, let's talk about the system design interview. If you've ever felt that, that sense of dread like it's this huge, vague, open-ended challenge, well, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to break it all down. I'm going to give you a powerful, step-by-step framework that'll help you master this thing and turn that whole interview into a structured, collaborative conversation.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to get inside the interviewer's head. What are they really looking for? Then I'll hand you a 4-step framework you can use for pretty much any problem. We'll even walk through a real example, designing a newsfeed, and finish up with some key do's and don'ts, and, super practically, how to manage your 45 minutes.
All right, first things first, we have to completely reframe how you think about this interview. Seriously, it is not a test with one right answer. In fact, if you go in thinking there is a single right answer, that's probably your first mistake. The real goal, well, it's something else entirely. So what's really going on here? What does that interviewer actually want to see? I can tell you this, they're not expecting you to magically build the next Google in 45 minutes. Nope. What they want to see is how you think. How do you solve a problem when the requirements are kind of fuzzy? Just like on a real job. Okay, take a look at this list. Your technical chops? Yeah, they're on there, but they're just one piece of the puzzle. What they're really looking for are all these other things. Can you collaborate? Can you take a vague idea and turn it into a solid plan? How do you justify your trade-offs? And, just as important, they're actively looking for red flags. Things like over-engineering a simple problem, or just getting totally stuck on one idea and refusing to see other options. So, if you remember just one thing from this whole section, let it be this. It is a collaboration, not an exam. Think of your interviewer as your first teammate on this problem. They genuinely want to see your thought process. They want to see how you navigate this journey with them.
Okay, so for a collaboration to actually work, you need some kind of structure, right? And to really show you why this is so critical, I want to tell you about the #1 mistake I see candidates make. And we're going to do that through the story of a guy we'll call Jimmy. So let me introduce you to Jimmy. You probably know Jimmy. He's that super smart kid, always quick, always the first to shoot his hand up in class. He just loves having the answer ready for everything.
But here's the thing. In a system design interview, Jimmy's whole approach, it's a huge red flag, a massive one. Why? Because when you jump straight to a solution, it shows you haven't stopped to think about constraints or scale or what features are actually needed. It's a shortcut that just completely misses the entire point of the exercise.
So what's the takeaway? Yeah, pretty simple. Don't be like Jimmy. Seriously, do not jump into a solution. The absolute most important thing you can do right at the start is to just slow down, think, and ask clarifying questions until you really, truly get the scope of the problem.
And the perfect antidote to that be like Jimmy problem is having a process. This 4-step framework, it's your secret weapon. It literally forces you to be methodical. See? First, you understand and scope. Then, you propose a high-level design. And only then do you get into the deep dive details before you wrap up. It's basically a roadmap that stops you from jumping ahead. All right, enough theory. Let's make this framework real. We are going to walk through every single step using a classic system design question. Design a newsfeed system. This is going to show you exactly how to put this all into practice in a real interview.
So we're in step 1, understand and scope. Imagine you're the candidate. You start asking questions to just chip away at that ambiguity. Okay, is this for a mobile app, a web app, or both? What are the absolute most important features? How is the feed sorted? Chronological? Each answer you get is pure gold. And notice how you push for numbers. 10 million daily active users. That's not just small talk. That number right there is going to completely shape your entire design.
Okay, moving on to step 2. This is where you propose your high-level blueprint and get that all-important buy-in from the interviewer. For something like a newsfeed, a really smart way to start is to break the whole thing down into 2 core flows. First, there's feed publishing. That's what happens when someone makes a post. And second, you have news feed building. That's the other side, retrieving and showing the feed to someone.
So let's look at publishing. This flow is all about being proactive. A user makes a post, it gets saved, and then this thing called a fan-out service kicks in immediately. Think of it like a newspaper delivery service. It grabs that new post and pushes it out to the mailbox or, the cache of every single friend. This is a push model. We're doing the work up front, pre-calculating everything, so that when someone goes to read their feed, it's already there and loads instantly.
And now for the other side of the coin, building the feed. Because we did all that hard work during publishing, this part is beautifully simple and super fast. When a user opens their app, the newsfeed service literally just grabs the ready-made list of posts from their cache. See the trade-off? We're prioritizing a super fast read time, which is exactly what you want for a good user experience. I mean, who wants to wait for their feed to load? Nobody.
Okay, time for step 3, the deep dive. Let's get into the details of publishing. That fan-out service we talked about, it's pretty clever. It uses a message queue to manage all its work. You can think of a message queue as just a shared, super reliable to-do list for your servers. So instead of trying to update all 5,000 friends' feeds at the exact same time, which would be a disaster, right? It could fail, cause a massive load spike. The service just drops 5,000 little tasks into this queue. Then, a bunch of worker systems can just pull tasks from the queue at a nice, manageable pace. This makes the whole thing incredibly resilient. If one update fails, who cares? The rest of the system just keeps chugging along. Now for the deep dive on the retrieval side. The key concept here is a process called hydration. It's a great term. The service first gets a super simple skeleton of the feed. We're talking just a list of post IDs. It's really fast to get. But a list of IDs is boring, right? So to bring it to life, the system needs to hydrate that skeleton. It goes and fetches all the juicy details for each post, the actual text, the images, the author's name, the number of likes, from a bunch of different caches and services. Then it pulls it all together into that complete, fully formed newsfeed that you actually see on your screen.
All right, let's hit the final step of the framework. You've laid out the core design, you've done your deep dive, now it's time to wrap things up with confidence. And listen, this is not just an afterthought. This is your chance to really show off that senior-level thinking and cement your credibility as a really strong engineer.
So in step 4, this is where you really flex your critical thinking. You can talk about potential bottlenecks. A classic one is the hot key problem. Like what happens when a celebrity with 50 million followers makes a post? That fan out is going to be insane. You should also bring up operational stuff. How would you monitor this? What metrics are important? And then you look to the future. You ask, okay, so what if we had to support 100 million users instead of 10 million? What would break? What would we change? That kind of foresight is exactly what they're looking for.
So now that we've gone through the whole framework, let's just boil it all down to the most important principles. A quick little checklist you can take with you into any interview.
Okay, let's really nail this down. Here's your simple checklist. The do's are pretty much all about communication. Ask questions, always think out loud, and remember to treat it like a collaboration. And the don'ts, well, these are the classic traps you need to avoid. Don't jump into a solution, don't go quiet for long periods, and for goodness sake, don't be afraid to ask for a hint if you get stuck. Think of this as your cheat sheet for having the right mindset.
And finally, let's talk about maybe the most practical skill you need, time management, right? You only have 45 minutes. So here's a solid guide on how to break down that time to make sure you actually get through every step of the framework.
Okay, for a standard 45-minute interview, try to plan your time something like this. Spend the first 3 to 10 minutes just on understanding and scoping. Seriously, do not rush this part. Then give yourself about 10 to 15 minutes for that high-level design. The biggest chunk of your time, obviously, is going to go to the deep dive. But, and this is key, always save those last 3 to 5 minutes to wrap up strong. Don't get caught running out of time.
So look, this framework, it isn't just theory. It is a repeatable, practical process that is going to give you so much more confidence walking into any system design interview. The whole structure is right here, ready for you to use. So the only real question left is, where are you going to start practicing? If you want my advice, master step 1. The art of asking great questions, that is the foundation for every single great design.